Part 1. The beginning. My ex-husband is the most arrogant person I know. Leaving him was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made, and I thought he'd leave me alone for the rest of my life. But here he is again. 8 years ago, I was happily married to my husband, Nathan. Our relationship was rock solid, at least I thought so. We were doing well together. We dated for 2 years, were engaged for almost a year while we planned our wedding, and then got married. At that point, I would probably be willing to defend our marriage with my own life. I thought we were soulmates, but I guess I was the only one who thought that. A few months after our wedding, my husband lost his job. It was a tough time for both of us, but I was confident that we would get through it and that he would quickly find a new job. We had some savings and I was working full-time. It was a difficult few months, but he tried his best to find employment and eventually got an offer after what seemed like a million interviews. I still remember how happy we were the day he received that letter. I took him out to a restaurant to celebrate. Who would have thought that this would be the job that would end up ruining our marriage? He came back from his first day of work and didn't look happy. He looked terribly depressed. I knew right away that something was wrong. What followed was a really tough conversation. It turned out that his ex-girlfriend Jessica worked at the same company he had just joined. I found out about Jessica then. Nathan had been dating her for 3 years and had even proposed to her, but she had turned him down and dumped him. This was a few years before we met and started dating. Of course, we didn't really talk about our exes, but I knew he had taken their breakup hard and had never spoken about her since. When I found out Jessica was working with him, my stomach literally dropped. Of all people, her. I didn't know what to think. Sure, it had been years and he didn't have feelings for her anymore, but the idea of them working together didn't appeal to me at all. Nathan seemed really upset too, and we had a long discussion about what to do. He suggested quitting, but at that point our savings were almost gone, and I didn't know how much longer I could pay all the bills without making a drastic lifestyle change, and neither of us were ready for that. Plus, I told him we were adults and quitting a job because of an ex was childish. We spent most of the night talking about what to do, and by the end of the conversation, I felt a lot better. It seemed silly to think that some ex from the past could somehow affect our relationship. My husband was extremely caring and affectionate and completely dispelled all my doubts. The next day he went to work, and when he came back he said that she worked in a completely different department and he had hardly seen her all day. He assured me that he was not going to communicate with her unless there was some unlikely work necessity, and if that happened, he would tell me right away. This calmed me down, and with each passing day I stopped thinking about her more and more. My husband was as loving as ever and protected both of us. We had dealt with what could have been a serious problem if we had handled it differently. Now, looking back, I laugh at how naive I was. I was so blinded by love and trust in my husband that I didn't even for a second admit to myself that there was something suspicious going on. Part 2. The business trips. A couple of months after starting his new job, my husband went on a business trip. He said that if everything went well, he might get offered a promotion, and I was really happy for him. I asked if I could go with him, make a little vacation out of it for the two of us, but he said that he would be constantly busy, so there was no point. He also added that only men would be going to the meeting, and no one was bringing their wives or girlfriends, so I would feel uncomfortable. I was a little disappointed, but I didn't pay much attention to it. What he said made sense. When he came back, I asked how the meetings went and if there was a chance for a promotion, but he said that he might have to go to a couple more meetings before a decision was made. For the next 3 months, he went on business trips at least once a month, but there was no news about a promotion. Instead of being suspicious, I naively started worrying that the company was simply exploiting him by not offering a salary increase. I also want to clarify that after that first conversation, we never talked about Jessica again. I hardly thought about her, and even if I did, I didn't mention it. When I told all this to my friends during the divorce, they said that I was incredibly naive to trust my husband so blindly. Now I agree with them, but at the time I would have trusted this man with my life. 5 months after Nathan started his new job, I realized that my period was late. Not paying much attention to it, I decided to take a pregnancy test just to calm myself down. To my surprise, I saw 2 lines. I was stunned. This was definitely not a planned pregnancy, but given Nathan's new job and our stable financial situation, I thought it was good news. I was nervous but excited at the same time. Nathan was on another business trip when I took the test but was due back that same day, so I decided to wait to tell him in person. I still remember how nervous I was and how I was already starting to dream about our new life together. He came home quite late and I waited for him so we could have dinner together. He came in looking upset and I asked him what was wrong. He said it was just work and he didn't want to talk about it. I said I might have some news that would cheer him up and asked him to wait a moment while I brought him the test. I asked him to close his eyes, picked up the test and told him to open them. He just stared at me for a few seconds and asked if it was really what he thought it was. I thought he was just in shock and said, "Yes, we are going to be parents." I waited anxiously for him to come to his senses and be happy, but after a few moments he still had the same expression on his face. I felt uneasy and asked, "Are you okay? Aren't you happy?" His face changed and he said he was just stunned and taken aback. I told him it was a surprise to me too, but it could be a good thing for us and we could work through it together. He still looked uncomfortable and said he needed time to think about it. I was extremely upset by that reaction. I expected him to be happy or at least supportive. I told him I was disappointed in him, and he basically just brushed me off, saying I couldn't expect him to be excited about such a major life change that he didn't agree to. I told him that he signed up for this when he married me, and if he couldn't be a good husband in this situation, maybe we should rethink our marriage. He said maybe, and left the room without another word. I said that in a fit of anger and hurt. I didn't really mean it, but his reaction broke my heart. I cried alone in the living room and slept on the couch because I didn't want to see him. He never came over to check on me or ask me to come back. But even then, I still believed that we could cope and somehow work through this. But that was just the beginning of my troubles. Part 3. The accusations. I woke up and Nathan was already dressed for work and making breakfast. I didn't talk to him and went back to the bedroom. He didn't even try to stop me or say a word. I didn't know what to do. I waited for him to come in, but after a while I heard the front door slam. He was gone. I spent the rest of that day talking to my friends and my mother. I took a day off from work. I remember that day so clearly, like it was yesterday. By the time he came home from work, I had a whole speech prepared about how he had broken my heart and how he should be a better husband, but I didn't know that he had a speech prepared too. And it was something completely unthinkable. The first thing he said when he walked into the house was, "We need to talk." I agreed. I wanted to talk too. I even thought that I had more reasons than he did. It turned out that he had a real surprise for me. We sat down opposite each other, and without any preamble, he asked, "Whose child is this?" I was completely confused. I sincerely did not understand what he meant, so I asked him to repeat it. He said again, "Whose child is this?" I will never forget this moment. I asked what he meant and said that it was obviously our child, whose else could it even be? But he said we were past that point and I should just admit it and end the charade. I was truly scared. It wasn't a joke anymore. I told him again that of course it was his child, and I didn't understand why he was even asking me these questions. I had always been faithful to him, and he had never behaved like this before. He avoided looking me in the eye and said that it had mattered before, when he cared about our relationship. I'm pretty sure I was crying at that point. I kept telling him that I loved him, that there was nothing more important to me than our marriage, but he kept asking the same question, probably 10 times, and each time I was as confused as the first time. He said that if I couldn't be honest with him, then there was nothing more to talk about, because he wasn't going to raise someone else's child and live a lie. I cried and repeated over and over that I hadn't thought about another man since we met, and I didn't understand what I had done to deserve such accusations. He said that the way I barely seemed disappointed when he left for another business trip told him everything he needed to know about my fidelity. I was too shocked to respond. Every time he left for work, I felt sad and told myself to be mature and support him in his career, because I remembered how hard it was for us when he lost his job. I stopped asking to go with him after the first few attempts because he always said he was fully booked and only available late at night. I stopped calling him more than once a day when he was away because he wouldn't answer and would text that he was with clients. I had put his interests first, only to be told that I just wanted him to go away so I could spend time with another man. It was a slap in the face. I literally felt sick. I felt like I was in a nightmare. I told him all this, and he said there was no point in wasting time trying to make him out to be the villain because he was tired of feeling unwanted and he wouldn't let me make a fool of him. He said that ever since he started working and traveling for work, I had become cold and distant, that he didn't feel wanted, that he hated coming home because I didn't even look happy and he felt like I was better off without him around. I told him over and over that he was wrong, that this was a huge mistake, and I was just trying to support him as a wife. He kept saying that I was hiding something and that I preferred another man to our marriage. I asked him if he had any proof of these accusations, and he said that he didn't need proof to see the obvious. Anyone with half a brain could see it. I didn't even know what to say to that. I kept telling him that I had no one, that I spent most of my time at home while he was away. I said maybe I went out with my girlfriends a few times and he could check my phone if he wanted. He said he didn't want to see a phone with deleted evidence. I felt completely crushed. What else could I say? I asked him what he wanted me to do to prove my fidelity. I offered to do a paternity test after the baby was born, even though it would destroy my self-esteem. Never in my life did I think that I would volunteer for something so humiliating. I have always prided myself on my morals and ethics. Anyone who knows me would confirm this. Anyone except my own husband, of course. That's what hurt the most. He said he was not going to wait 9 months to prove infidelity, and that there was no way he would help me carry and raise someone else's child. I screamed at him, told him it was his baby, and called him paranoid for not believing me. He said he didn't care what I thought of him, but if I wanted to save this marriage, I had to terminate the pregnancy. I was horrified that he'd even said that. I asked him to think about what he'd said for a second and how crazy it sounded. He remained adamant. Then I asked him what he was going to do if I said no, because that wasn't even an option I would consider. And he said if I wanted to save this marriage, I had to do as he said or there would be a divorce. Divorce. I couldn't believe he was serious about that. I asked him if he was serious and he said yes, and that was the end of it for me. All the sadness just disappeared the moment I heard that. I told him he was free to do whatever he wanted, but I was keeping the baby and raising it with or without him. He said he hoped some loser hadn't got me pregnant and left the house. That was the last time we were in that house together. Later, I got a text from him saying he'd be back to get his stuff. I told him what time I'd be out and asked him to be gone when I got back. Part 4. The divorce and the truth. The next day, I met with a lawyer to discuss the divorce. We bought the house together. I wanted it to be quick and drama-free, and so did Nathan. We decided to sell the house and split the money. I moved in with my sister while I figured out my life, and he went who knows where. We were completely out of touch. None of our friends or family could have imagined this would happen. The number of times I burst into tears trying to explain to someone what happened is countless. Nathan's behavior didn't change throughout the entire process. He refused to listen to me or anyone else and insisted that I was unfaithful to him. I was friends with several of his coworkers' wives, and they told me how he always complained that I didn't care about him and that I never put effort into our marriage. The entire divorce, I felt like it wasn't happening to me, like I was watching a movie or observing someone else's life from the outside instead of actually experiencing it. At one point, I even began to believe that maybe I had behaved in some way that was wrong for him to see it that way. More than anything, I wanted to talk to him, to discuss everything, but he completely shut me out. When my son was born, I texted him about it and he didn't respond. A few months later, one of his coworkers' wives texted me again and asked if I had heard anything about him. I told her we weren't in touch. She apologized, said she was sorry, and wanted me to hear about it from a friend rather than through gossip. I asked her what happened, and she told me that Nathan had gotten back together with Jessica. Apparently, they were the main topic of conversation at the office, always arm in arm, everywhere together. I burst into tears. Over the next few weeks, I found out everything. It turns out they had been dating for months. All those business trips he went on were just excuses to spend time at Jessica's house. Jessica was the one who had put it into his head that I was cheating on him, because she said that if she had a man, she would never let him be away from her so much, and a bunch of other poisonous ideas like that. I found out all this because my friends pretended to want to be friends with her so they could find out what really happened between Nathan and me. Jessica was so smug and didn't seem to regret it one bit. She acted like she had won some kind of prize. Honestly, I felt like the dumbest woman in the world. I saw all the signs, all the red flags that I ignored. Looking back, it all seemed so horribly obvious. I spent months in a deep depression. I was severely depressed. It was without a doubt the hardest time of my life. Having to quit my job and live off family support, being a single mom, struggling with depression and the guilt of being a burden to my loved ones was unbearable. It was a hellish year to say the least. I am so glad my sister was there for me. I honestly don't know how I would have coped without her. It took time, but I came to my senses. I stopped obsessing about Nathan and Jessica, focused on my son, found a new job, and rented my own place. I thought I was done with my ex-husband forever. 2 years ago, I married an amazing man who treats me like a queen. This is probably the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I am so grateful to have him in my life. Part 5. Nathan's return. Now, let me explain why I'm even sharing this story. A few days ago, I was scrolling through Facebook without any particular goal in mind, and suddenly I got a message from Nathan. We hadn't spoken in years, so seeing his name on the screen was weird. I didn't know if I should even open his message, but curiosity got the better of me and I opened the chat. He wrote that he had tried to contact me, but my number had changed and he didn't know where I lived now. He wrote a long message about how he had broken up with Jessica because she cheated on him with multiple men and that he should have never let her into our relationship. He said that all this time, all these 8 years, he had been thinking about me and our son, but he was too ashamed to reach out. He also wrote that he knew I would never forgive him, but he wanted to be in his son's life and would do anything to prove he was worthy of being a father. There was a lot more in there, but mostly it was just begging about how much he wanted to see his son. I couldn't believe my eyes. Jessica had cheated on him after he had accused me of it. Karma. And yes, it felt good to see him begging and groveling to be in my son's life, because I knew for a fact that no matter what he said, it wasn't going to happen. I debated for a long time what to do about it. Should I ignore him, just block him? But then the vengeful part of my brain kicked in. The thing is, my son's birth certificate doesn't list a father. I specifically left Nathan's name off of it, and he didn't care at the time either. Legally, he has no rights whatsoever. I had dated my current husband for 2 years before we got married. He loves my son. He's the only father my child has ever known. A year ago on our anniversary, he officially adopted my little boy. We are a family in every sense of the word, so I allowed myself to gloat a little and texted Nathan back that I didn't know what he was talking about. I I told him that my son was never his to begin with and that my wonderful husband had already officially adopted him. I told him that everything he had believed because of Jessica turned out to be true and that I was glad he was single because he deserved it. And the icing on the cake was a photo of me, my husband, and our son, a happy family. I told him to never contact me again and I blocked him. Of course, my son is Nathan's biological child, but that doesn't give him any rights to him. He lost that chance before the child was even born, and I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to make him feel even a little bit of the pain he had caused me. I told my husband what I had done and he just laughed and said I shouldn't have been so vindictive, but he understood why I did it. Part 6. The aftermath. Last night I texted my friend Lori, whose husband works with Nathan, and I asked if she had heard anything about him. She said she was actually going to text me about it. It turns out Nathan is in a really bad place. He's been showing up drunk at work several times and almost got fired. Laura, of course, doesn't know what I told Nathan, so she thinks he's just going through a rough patch after breaking up with Jessica. They had broken up a few months ago. I just listened and pretended to be surprised and thanked her for caring and being a good friend. I haven't told my husband yet, and I won't tell any of my friends until I tell him first. Honestly, I feel a little ashamed. Maybe I did go a bit overboard. Update 1. The office drama. I just wanted to say a huge thank you for all the supportive comments and advice I received when I first shared this story. It was very valuable to read about everyone's experiences. It's nice to know that there are people out there who understand my vindictiveness and think Nathan got what he deserved. I have a quick update on the whole Nathan situation. Laura texted me again and told me that Nathan and Jessica got into a huge fight in the office while they were both working late. They had a massive confrontation, and multiple people witnessed them pushing each other and being completely inappropriate. Both Jessica and Nathan were fired almost immediately and haven't been heard from since. All I feel about the whole situation is relief that he took his anger out on Jessica instead of trying to drag me into it. I don't want to deal with him again in any way. I decided to tell Lori what I had texted Nathan back then, and she got a little tense. She said that while she understood my anger for what he did to me and my son, she thinks I may have gone too far. She even suggested that I should get back in touch with Nathan and tell him the truth about our son. I disagree for a number of reasons, mainly because it's just not important to me to ease his pain, but also because I don't want to take the risk that he'll get angry and try to somehow get access to my son. It's unlikely, but who knows? I'm not going to take any chances when it comes to my child. He's too important to me, and I don't trust Nathan enough to just let this go. What Nathan did during our marriage was unforgivable, so why should this be such a devastating blow to him now? I don't get it. He made his choice 8 years ago when he chose to believe Jessica over his own wife. He chose to abandon his unborn child based on lies and manipulation. Now he has to live with the consequences of those choices. Update 2. Moving forward, I wanted to share a final update on how things are going for me. After talking with my husband, I decided to see a therapist to work through some lingering feelings about Nathan and this whole situation. I was able to get a professional outside perspective and start to let go of the past. I'm doing this for my marriage and my family, not because I care about Nathan in any way. I feel like to be the best wife and mother to my child, I need to let go of everything that happened in the past. The anger and resentment I've been carrying around isn't healthy for anyone, least of all my son. My therapist has helped me understand that while my feelings of betrayal and hurt are completely valid, holding on to them is only hurting me and my current family. As for Nathan, I haven't heard from Laura since that last conversation, and I have no desire to hear about him again. I don't care how he is doing. He's an adult and needs to deal with his own issues and the consequences of his actions. I'm doing great, and that's all that matters to me. I'm glad he reached out after all these years because it gave me the closure I didn't even know I needed. He got exactly what he deserved, and now I can finally close this chapter of my life for good. My focus is on my wonderful husband, my beautiful son, and the amazing life we've built together. Nathan is nothing more than a painful memory from the past, and that's exactly where he belongs. The most important thing I've learned from all of this is that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead us to the best things in our lives. If Nathan hadn't abandoned me and our son, I never would have met my incredible husband. My son never would have had such an amazing father figure in his life. Our family wouldn't exist the way it does today. So in a twisted way, I'm almost grateful for what Nathan did. He showed me his true character when I needed him most, and his absence from our lives has only made room for someone infinitely better. My son has grown up with a real father who chose to love him, not someone who was forced into it by biology. And I have a husband who would never, ever put me through what Nathan did. That's the end of my story. Nathan can live with his regrets, but I'm living my best life.